Hello, thank you for joining us, everyone. I'm speaking with Bayonne mayoral candidate and City Council President Sharon Ashe Nadrowski. Madam Council President, thank you for joining us here on Hudson TV to talk about your campaign.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
There are so many things to talk about. I want to highlight the major things. Obviously, probably what's most in the eyes of the public right now concerns development, specifically an issue at the former military ocean terminal, MOTBY, the Peninsula at Bayonne Harbor. The planning board just approved the subdivision of a project that you have some concerns with. Can you explain that to us?
Yes, the concerns with that particular project is that was one of the original projects that 7 years ago, when we finally cleared up all the lawsuits and were able to move forward with making that property productive and on the tax rolls again, we had sold those, or contracted a number of those properties with developers. All the properties down there have been taken down in part on the land, so they are generating tax revenue, all of them except for this last one. And this one was given to a developer that 7 years ago, the contract was signed, which gives them the rights to purchase the property. For 7 years, they have done nothing with that property. That property has been sitting there, still owned by the city, being maintained by the city, and now 7 years later, the developer decided he wants to start building. But the problem with that is a number of things. First off, the contract had an expiration date of this past October. The contract was the developer is obligated to actually take down part of the land, at least within 48 months of the closing. Well, that 48 months expired last November of 2021. So he has no rights. The city doesn't have the ability. We don't have the authority or the ability to transfer the land to him because there's no contract anymore. That contract's null and void expiration.
What steps are you taking now?
I'm very concerned about is the pilot that we gave. I put a resolution on. I put two resolutions in an ordinance I introduced at our caucus meeting this week, which will be up on our council. And the one is to actually declare that contract null and void due to the fact that it has expired. And then also to put out an RFP to get a proposal for a developer to come in and pay us the fair value of that land. So the main reason for wanting to go out and get the fair value, and my issue with this now being drawn down, is this developer hasn't paid anything, no taxes, has paid nothing to the city, and the value of property has changed. Everyone knows price values have gone up in Bayonne. So he paid approximately, he'll pay under the current contract about $35 million for that property. That's based on the prices as were 7 years ago. But now that property today, today's value, based on comparable sales of what we've been doing, would be closer to $65,000 to $95,000. So to me, the Bayonne residents are entitled to the fair value. We currently still own that land. He let the contract expire. He has not paid any taxes on that, not a penny to the city, by merely sitting there and holding land and not doing anything with it, which is something we were always against. He benefits, $40 million at the expense of the taxpayers, $40 to $60 million. How is that fair to the residents of Bayonne? How's that fair to our school system? Because the pilot's very different too, which is another one of the resolutions I introduced about canceling the pilot, because that pilot was giving, first of all, to a completely different project, because the project that we originally gave the pilot to 7 years ago was for 850 units. The project that he's submitting now is 1,250 units. That's a 40% change in scope of the project.
What's your overall view of pilots in general?
Well, I think they were necessary to do at the time, right? The base was a barren wasteland, basically, when we came in, And in order to incentivize people, because there had been no development going on in Bayonne, let's face it, for a number of years. So it was an untested market. So pilots were a necessary instrument to use to attract people to come in and invest in Bayonne and take that risk and build. But now, 7 years later, we don't really need to incentivize people in the same way, right? People are, for lack of a better word, dying to get in here and develop, right? People. That's obviously. I mean, it's not my opinion. We could tell by the value, the land value, how it has increased. People want to come here and want to build, and the point of a pilot is to incentivize people, right, to offset possible risk, right, financial risk. But as you know, with the way the market is right now, we don't need to incentivize in the same ways that we did, 7 years ago. We don't even need to incentivize the same way we did 3 years ago. So the pilot's not favorable. It's a 30-year pilot written for a project that is 47% different from the project today. Back then, and this is a very important issue that the residents should be very concerned about. Back then, the pilots were written without giving one penny to the school system. Since then, the council had changed, and we direct 10% of the pilot to our school. This pilot will give zero to our schools.
Okay, so the bottom line is,
School children. It's just not fair to our school children.
okay, so the bottom line is your two resolutions and your ordinance will be introduced at the next council meeting, which I believe is on election day, is it not?
Oh, no, that's the next
Wait.
board meeting. It's
Okay,
next Wednesday.
anyway, so it's the week
20th.
before.
Yeah, it's April 20th.
Okay, all right. Another development issue I want to have you comment on, I think you have some concerns with this as well. I'm not even sure how you pronounce this. It's the site near the old Texaco at Bergen Point. Is it pronounced the Cascom?
Caschem. Caschem, it was a chemical plant.
Okay, what are your issues with that?
Well, my issues with that is, again, a lot of my issues are process. This was before the planning board back in, I believe, like September of 21. A plan with all of our experts was developed, and the plan was for 3 stories of residential on the eastern side of the property, or 4 stories on the eastern side of the property, and because there's a street down the middle. So one part of the property is on the east side of Avenue A, and that was approved for 4 stories of residential. And on the west side of Avenue A was 3 stories of residential. That's a long pier that jets out over to the north bank. So that was approved, and it was gone through all the process. And then there was a change. The developer wanted more density. He wanted to go up higher. And the council took a unprecedented path where we rejected the planning board's recommendation and submitted our own. But my main problem with the way this came into the planning board is that it took out, the original development was 3 lots of land. Now 1 is taken out, and that side is, they also submitted a plan, which we didn't consider at the time, for 16 stories of warehousing to be built on the west side of the property of Avenue A. And then they want to go up higher on the east side of Avenue A up to 6 stories. We just approved a movie studio down on Texaco that we know the traffic will be about 2,000 cars a day. We have Amazon right up the road, which gives a ton of trucks. We have trucks in and out all day long. We approved.
You're relatively close to the high school as well.
Well,
not right there, but you're close enough where traffic concerns may become a major issue in your mind.
Yeah, so and there's just another right in this area, in the 5-block area, we have approved at the AMP, we approved 800 and something units, and then we can go up. They have the ability to add more. Nasarima, which is on 5th Street. This is all between 2nd and 3rd Street. On 5th Street, we have 180 units approved. And on like 7th, 8th Street, it's not really a street name, it's in the middle there, we have 850 units. And now they wanted to add more density, but they really haven't done any of the studies. Everyone says we did a traffic study, but the traffic study is without all the other developments in. Like, project one did a traffic study, and then project two did a traffic study, but they don't include because the other project one wasn't in the plan already, they don't include that because it's not built. So I think we're overdeveloping in this area. And my problem is that there was a good plan. Residents had came to the original planning board meeting, had spoke in favor of the plan, liking the size of it and the height of it, talking against going bigger and denser, but it was ignored. And then this other meeting happened, was rescheduled multiple times, and residents showed up and then it got canceled. Residents showed up, it got canceled. And then eventually, when it was passed, there were no residents there. And, I think they just got tired of coming and having to cancel on them. So I just honestly think it was a bait and switch. And honestly, there was no community input. We're trying to get where the community actually has to say in what happens in their neighborhoods.
Let me touch upon a couple of other quick points on your platform before we run out of time. Quality of life. I've heard some reports that people are concerned with the amount of quote unquote trash around town. Talk a little bit about the cleanliness of the town and road repairs in town.
Well, they might be the two biggest issues I hear when I go knocking on doors. Sometimes more than development. Trash pickup in Bayonne is a major issue. It's a major concern. It's been since the new contract was awarded. But again, we awarded the contract to one of the mayor's top political donors, a personal friend of the mayor, someone who's never done garbage before. He was never in the garbage business. He specifically got into the garbage business to do Bayonne's garbage. And it has been an absolute nightmare. Garbage, there's missed pickups, garbage cans thrown all over the street, garbage laying all over the street. Garbage is out on the curb for 12 to 15 hours sometimes before it's picked up. Some nights it's picked up right away. Some nights it's there the next morning. The longer number of hours that the garbage is sitting at the curb, it's always going to be messy, right? It just inherently, right? You got.
Would your ultimate goal be to get a new garbage collection operator? Would you try to get this contract voided because you don't feel they're doing a proper job? Well, talk about that.
Well, I wouldn't void the contract, but I think the first thing I would do is honestly, we need to evaluate what the garbage needs are, right? How often we really need pickup in town, how, what that looks like, how many days, how frequently, what's the best time of day, how many hours we want to set garbage out. And also, set procedures. What's the expectation? What do we expect our garbage truck to do, right? What
garbage and recycling done by the same company?
Yes, they are. So, once we get that, then we need to go out to rebid. We need to go out to rebid with clear set expectation and of what is in that contract. When they pick up will be what the expectation is, how many times. And then, another thing I'm really considering is I want to look at, maybe it's about time we bring garbage pickup back into town. Maybe the city does their own garbage pickup. We had done that many years ago. I know there's pros and cons to it, but I think it's worth a look at seeing if that's cost effective now. Is it for Bayonne to take care of Bayonne? This way we're accountable to ourselves. We're not accountable to anyone else, and we're responsible for our own garbage pickup. It's a possibility. I just think that we should be exploring all options. I mean, we know garbage pickup is not working in town, and to just ignore it and not try and do something, it's just not acceptable. You can't leave the same thing there and expect it to fix itself. It's just not going to happen.
Hey, unfortunately, we are out of time. Anyone wants to learn more about your campaign, your website is?
Sharon for Bayonne.com.
4 is the numeral 4.
Yes.
Okay. Madam Council President, thank you very much for speaking with us on Hudson TV. Several weeks left in the campaign. I'm sure it's going to be extremely busy and quite interesting, to say the least. Thank you for spending the time to talk to us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.